Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. My name is Tim Harris. It's 10 o'clock. It means it's time for 10 with Tim. Each day, Monday through Friday, we take about 10 minutes going verse by verse through the Word of God. And today we're in Genesis chapter 48. Thank you for being with me. I love this chapter. I really do. There's so much here that's just a lot of fun to read. So at the end of yesterday, end of chapter 47, Jacob is talking to his son Joseph, and he has requests for burial, right? And so now in this chapter, we now know that Jacob is on his deathbed. He's on his deathbed. He's 147 years old. He has lived in the land of Egypt now for, I think, 17 years. That's what we read yesterday. And so here he is. Now in the book of Genesis, these deathbed scenes, that end of life of the patriarch is very important because this is where the provisions are made for the heirs and the progeny, the future heirs. So Joseph realizes that I don't know if there's no word said about Jacob's desire to bless Joseph's sons, but Joseph brings his sons to Jacob's deathbed in order for them to receive a blessing. His sons are Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, remember, they were born in the order of Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh is the older one, and that becomes important in a moment. So Joseph brings his sons to his father. This is, again, I mentioned this yesterday, one of those chapters where it goes back and forth in the Hebrew between calling him Jacob and calling him Israel. And again, most of your English translations will just call him Jacob all the way through. But the Hebrew alternates, and it's kind of interesting because I don't necessarily think it's random. In these opening verses, it says that Jacob was laying down in his deathbed, but then Israel sits up, because what he's doing is in so many ways the formation of the nation of Israel. The sons of Jacob are the sons of Israel. We'll talk about that in a minute. So he brings his boys in, Manasseh and Ephraim. And as you'll notice, what literally happens is Jacob adopts them. This becomes really the formal adoption ceremony. And we talked about this in previous chapters, when the children are placed upon his knees, they're at his knees. There's these formal proclamations. The language used is very official, and what happens here is that Jacob literally adopts the sons of Joseph. Now it is complicated, but now Reuben is the firstborn of Jacob, but because of his sins with Bilhah, Jacob's wife, Reuben has lost his rights as the firstborn. So basically Joseph is elevated and gets the rights of the firstborn here. But what happens is Jacob adopts his sons, and so Manasseh and Ephraim are now to be treated as sons of Jacob. It's literally an adoption. It's really strange. And so the double portion that Joseph would receive as the firstborn, instead of Reuben, now that double portion is divided between the sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And again, it's kind of weird and complicated, but that's what's happening here, so don't miss that. The other weird and complicated thing is because, Jacob, still up to his old tricks. So he's the deceiver, right? He is slippery. And so Joseph brings the boys up close, because Jacob's here on his deathbed, half blind, and anyway, he knows what he's doing. And so Joseph slides the boys up to receive their blessing, right? So Jacob's reaching out to bless the boys. In the process of reaching out, he crosses his arms. You're supposed to, have the right hand of blessing, upon the eldest, but he crosses his arms. And so he gives the greater blessing, what's it called, primogeniture. He reverses it. Again, it's a theme in Genesis. Always, you're supposed to give the ultimate blessing to the firstborn, to the oldest, but the youngest, is going to take the prominence. And this is what happens. He literally crosses his arms in order to give the greater blessing to the younger. Again, by now in Genesis, you should expect that. But, this old goat just crosses his arms. And Joseph is like, whoa, daddy, no, whoa, wrong kid. Jacob's like, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And so once more, there's a reversal. And so it's not going to be Manasseh and Ephraim. It's going to be Ephraim and Manasseh. Ephraim receives the greater blessing as the youngest. I just think that's just such a hoot. Now, this blessing is actually rather beautiful. I love the part where Jacob says, may the God before whom my grandfather Abraham, my father Isaac walked. I love that so much. The God before whom my grandfather and my father walked. The God who has been my shepherd all my days. I love that. The shepherd of my life for all my days to this very day. The angel who has redeemed me from all harm. May he bless these boys. That's so good. The God who has been the shepherd of my life all my days to this very day. That's so beautiful. It is just so beautiful. However, remember yesterday? Like it was just like yesterday in chapter 47, we were reading where, remember when Pharaoh says, "Hey, old man, how old are you?" And Jacob says, I'm 130 years, and they've been hard years. I mean, that's what he said. Like in chapter 47, he said, my life's been short and terrible. That's what he said. My life's been hard and shorter than the lives of my ancestors. It's been short and terrible. I mean, he just told Pharaoh that. My life's been really hard, really hard. I was walking to school in the snow, uphill both ways. And it was a depression. And, we didn't have money and clothes and, oh my goodness, yesterday it was terrible. His life is hard. And today it's like, Jesus has led me all the way. My shepherd, the angel that removed all harm. How do you explain that? How do you explain that? That, there's one way to tell the story of his life and say, man, it's been hard. My life has been hard. And then the other way, part of it is his perspective before Pharaoh and now his perspective at the end. At the point of death, when you look back at the point of death, when you look back after it's over, if you ever saw the old show, How I Met Your Mother, one of the characters talks about what she calls graduation goggles. And she's talking about how in like high school or college, it was really hard, right? Like writing all those papers and making all those classes and, student loans and, man, all these people you didn't even like and these teachers, that didn't like you. And man, it was hard and you just can't wait to get out of high school. And then at graduation, you put on these graduation goggles. And that's not really, it's just that idea that when you look at it from the perspective of it's being over, all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, I loved college. Those were the best years of my life, and you want to stay in touch and you sign everybody's yearbook, and you want it to never end. It's just interesting, the perspective when it's over. When it's over, you put on your graduation goggles and all of a sudden, all those years that were so hard and terrible, they were the best years of your life. It's why when Grandpa tells you about the good old days, they sound terrible. But when Grandpa looks back, those were the best days. Those were just good times. Those were hard times, but they were good times. I guess it's the same thing when you ride a roller coaster and in the middle of the ride, you're like, ah, you think you're going to die. You're screaming. You can't breathe. And when it's over, you think, oh, that was awesome. Let's do it again. It's the difference between being in the middle of the trial and when you come out on the other side, in the middle of the trial, don't ask me how I'm doing, don't ask me how I love my life, Man, sometimes in the middle of it, it's hard, but it's the middle, Wait to see what God's going to do, Because at the very end of everything, when Jacob looks back, he says, man, God has been so good to me. He's been the shepherd of my life. Every day of my life to this very day, he's been the angel that made the path smooth. In the middle of it, it didn't feel like a smooth path, right? But you look back over it and you think, my goodness, God's been so good to me. You know what I mean? I just think that's kind of funny. When he's in front of Pharaoh, man, it was gloom, despair, and agony on me. But now he's talking to his son Joseph, and he says, man, it's just so good. It's just so good. God's been so good to me. and he's going to be good to these boys too. May the same God who has been the shepherd of my life every day of my life, may he bless my grandsons. I love that. Now, again, he just made things really complicated, and I just encourage it kind of as far as the 12 tribes of Israel, the sons of Jacob, right? Well, there are 12 sons of Jacob, and we know their names, right? But then this just got, all of a sudden, Joseph, it's really not so much a tribe of Joseph because Joseph's tribe gets split between his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So, but then, if you look like in the book of Deuteronomy, when Moses talks about the 12 tribes, he only names 11. And in the song, Deborah, in the book of Judges, she's got like 10. So it's going to be complicated. That the 12 tribes are always kind of complicated because of this kind of thing. That Joseph's tribe is split. The tribe of Levi actually doesn't get any land, and so Ephraim and Manasseh get, portions of land. It gets really, really complicated. Jacob has 12 sons. We call them the 12 tribes of Israel, but again, it's more complicated, and this chapter right here complicates it a whole lot. The tribe of Joseph is divided now between the two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who become literally adopted sons of Jacob. So again, it's crazy, but isn't it good? And that's the theme of today, right? Life is crazy, but is it not good? Because God makes it good in the end. I love you all. Chapter 49 tomorrow, verses 1 to 33. Stay ahead, read with me, stay in the Word, and I'll be with you in the morning, 10 o'clock, Lord willing, for 10 with Tim. Chapter 49, verses 1 to 33.